Welcome back to our community. Susie Thomas visiting with David Warther from David Warther Carvings. And something very exciting is happening later this month. Yes, David?
It is, Susie. Actually, on September 21st, that's Saturday, we are part of a national program. It's part of the Smithsonian Institute's promotion of museums. It's called Museum Day Live. And anyone showing up here on September 21st gets free admission. There's simply no charge. It doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. You just come on in, and there's no charge on September 21st.
How many members in your party? That doesn't matter.
It really does not. If it's a lot, maybe you ought to call ahead of time. But no,
Yes.
just come on in, and nothing's changed. We'll still have our full guided tours. It'll be just like a regular day of visiting. You simply just don't pay anything, and so it's really a great deal. It doesn't get any better than free.
Oh, that's right.
And it is part of the Smithsonian's program nationwide. We're glad to be a part of that. We're also part of the Blue Star Museum, where active service members get in free from Memorial Day through Labor Day.
Oh, wonderful.
This Museum Day Live is coming up, again, September 21st, no charge at David Warther Carvings.
And this is voluntary. This is so nice of all of the museums that say, yes, we'll participate, or is the Smithsonian reimbursing you at all for this?
No, this is something
Wow.
that's done by different individual museums like ourselves. We join on to that, and joining for us is free, but then they do the promotion to try to get people to see museums, and they don't get anything out of it. We don't get anything out of it. No, it's strictly a good thing that we're doing for the community, for anybody that's here on that.
Wow, that is awesome. Saturday, September 21st. And your hours again, let's remind everyone.
9 to 5.
Awesome. And Museum Day Live. Thank you. Thanks for participating in that. You also do something really fun called dinner tours. What are those?
Oh, the dinner tours are a lot of fun. Dinner tours are for groups. Usually groups of 25 or more. Very often we have bus groups that come in 40, 50 people at a time, and it's just a lot of fun. The groups come in usually at 4 or 5 in the evening, and we give a tour. Halfway through the tour, we all sit down for a really great meal catered by Benson's from Dover. And, of course, everyone knows Benson's food is to die for. So we have a really great meal, a dessert, and everything. And then I stand up after the dinner, and I go on with the tour, and we have a couple more rooms to see at that point. We end up in the workshop area, showing the group the workshop and the tools. And then people have a little time for shopping. The gift shop's very pretty here, very nice things. So that kind of what a dinner tour is about. It's for many different types of groups, not just tour groups that come in from far away. But we also do local corporations, things like Christmas parties, things like that, and sometimes just corporate meetings or corporate get-togethers.
What a fun, unique idea to do for the people that you work with. What a nice thing to do. How do people make reservations for that, David?
Well, they would want to call us here at our museum number, and they'll find that on the website, warther.org. And they could just talk to us about when they would want to come, whether we have openings that day, what all we can do for them, what the prices are. And, we can certainly discuss all that with them.
How does a person make sure they get you as their tour guide when they visit David Warther Carvings? Because I'm telling you, it makes a difference. You go into such cool detail, stories for every ship. It's always such a fun experience. I'm only half saying this in jest, how does a person get you as their guide?
Well, all the tour guides here are very
They're all
knowledgeable.
Good. That's right. They're all good.
And so people come in and they always get a tour. I'm almost always here. So it's a very, very normal thing for me to visit with every visitor that comes through. And it's at the workshop that I'm able to show, again, the carving tools and some of the ways in which I do things. And that's what most folks are interested, how things are done. How do you make this? How do you do that? So I'm able to get with them on that. I do give the tours whenever there's a group tour. So whenever we get a bus group or we have a dinner tour or something, then I'm the tour guide for that.
You say things over and over, however many times a day it takes, right? That's just amazing. Do you have a favorite project that's on display there?
Well, there are several ships that stand out as being favorite ships of mine. They turned out exceptionally well for one reason or another. Other ships are very sentimental and very special to me because I know the different ships I was working on when different kids were born and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there are always little favorites like that.
What stands out to you? What should we watch for?
Well, in the ancient room, one of the favorites that most people have is King Tut's royal yacht, and that's from 1300 B.C., and it's a very elegant yacht. It was the equivalent of Air Force One today.
Wow.
It's just a really neat ship. Then in the Middle Ages, the Middle Age room of the ships from the Middle Ages, most folks like the Viking ships, but the Italian ships are really the ones that are elegant.
Yeah.
They were just very striking, very elegant, very, very proportional. A lot of the ships in the Middle Ages, things were a little bit awkward, but not so with the Italian ships.
Is it difficult to be able to imagine what they looked like based on something that sunk so many years ago?
Well, there are a lot of interesting tools that those folks use. And somebody that has an interest in this would want to look up the Institute of Nautical Archaeology, INA. It's part of Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas. And those are the folks that really head up a lot of this underwater research. When you're watching National Geographic and people are diving for ships, it's always the Institute of Nautical Archaeology. And they have their laboratory there at College Station. They have their library. They do a lot of fascinating work in reconstructing these ancient ships.
What are you working on right now?
Right now I'm working on a famous Canadian ship. It's called the Blue Nose. And it was a famous fishing schooner and racing yacht in Canada. It was built about 100 years ago.
And what interested you in this?
Well, again, my project is to carve ships that have historical significance or structural significance. And the Blue Nose is pretty much on the historical end of things. Even though it's modern, from my standpoint, it's a modern ship. It really is an important ship, being a famous racing yacht and so forth. And so, I decided to add that to the project.
And how's it coming along?
A little over halfway done. It's really looking good.
Oh, good. Do you ever go back and look at some of these and go, oh, man, do you see things that we don't see that you wish you could do over again?
Oh, yeah.
You do?
When you start, again, I started when I was in high school, and I cringe at looking at my earlier ships. And, of course, the carvings are arranged in chronological order, not in any order that I made them in. So oftentimes I see people looking at a ship that I made, when I was 20 years old, and I want to yell out, no, don't look at that one. Look at the one right beside it. That's a good one.
Oh, I don't think we don't notice. I mean, we're just marveling at the detail. Again, how do you do it? Walk us through a project of what you do first, what you do next, because it's in such layers and there's so much detail, and the finishing of them has got to be amazing.
Well, I start off, of course, with the blueprints, and I scale these down to the size of the carving that I'm going to make. I use different scales for different eras in shipbuilding history. And I make the hull of the ship from a piece of solid antique ivory. All of the ivory I use is ivory that was brought into the country years ago by collectors.
So legal?
Oh, yes. Most of this ivory is, all of this ivory is from old collections. Sometimes I buy from museums. I bought from several museums in the past, sometimes from private individuals. The bottom line is, years ago, people brought elephant tusks to the United States. They were missionaries, they were oil field workers, they were big game hunters. They brought the tusk here to have them in their homes. When these men and women die, their children sell off the collection. And we end up buying some, and then again, others are donated to museums, and then those museums sell them to us. So we bought quite a few tusks over the years from other notable museums here in the country.
And they're kind of large, so you have enough to last you for a while?
Oh, yes. Most people imagine that I get a ship out of a tusk. An average tusk will make a dozen ships.
Wow.
And that's not per pair, that's per tusk. So when you buy a pair of tusks, you're busy for many, many, many years.
Wow. Wow.
Good mileage inside of elephant tusk. So I make the hull of the ship first from a solid piece, and then I start building up all the deck detail, and then I finish by doing the masting and the rigging. And usually about 2/3 through the whole project is when I sit down and work on the base of the ship. And that's actually what I'm doing today, is I'm working on the solid ebony base of this racing yacht.
So you do some of the very fine work prior to what it's all going to sit on.
Yes, actually I do, yes.
Oh, my.
And all the parts are polished with little miniature buffing wheels. The buffing wheels are made out of felt, and I put them in the drill press. If you could try to picture a Q-tip, if you could try to picture a very tiny coin on the end of a shaft, these are things that are going around fast in the drill press. I put a little bit of wax on the wheels, and that little buffing wheel will just bring that ivory right up to a real high polish.
For the tiny, tiny little things, do you carve under a magnifying glass or something, or do you just have amazing eyesight?
Well, it used to be amazing eyesight. Now I work under a magnifying glass. So you're right on both counts.
Okay, so yes and yes. But it is remarkable. Now, talk to me a little bit about carving ivory. Is that got a different feel than wood, or talk about the two?
Sure. Well, ivory is similar to wood in that elephant tusks grow in rings like a tree. So you have all the grain that you would have in wood. However, you do have the density of a soft metal. So working ivory is a combination of features. You have the features of wood, you have the features of metal, all wrapped up in one material. The bottom line is I use jeweler saws and files to do much of the work, especially the rough cutting and the general shaping. And then the final shaping and the final fitting of parts is done with knives. So I end up using knives, and I carve ivory as you imagine carving wood, little shavings curling up and all that stuff. But everything's in extreme miniature. You don't use knives until you're right down to the final fitting of these parts.
Is there anything that can be done with the scrap?
Well, whenever I break parts or have what most people would call scrap, I'm able to make smaller parts from these things. So I'm always recycling down. And that's how I get so much out of an elephant tusk. Very little is thrown away. Basically, at the end, you're throwing out the dust and little tiny chips.
Oh, wow. Well, we want to remind everybody, tell us again where you are located.
We're located halfway between Sugar Creek and Walnut Creek on State Route 39. We're on the right as you're going out towards as you're going between Sugar Creek and Walnut Creek. We're on the right. We're just across the street from Weaver Appliance, and everybody knows us by the clock tower. We have a very large clock tower here, and a pretty new building. We've only been here for 6 years.
And September 21st, you can see it all for free thanks to the Smithsonian. And David Werther from David Werther Carvings, thank you so much for all you do in our community.
Well, thank you.